Unafraid Show, Reister or Wrong. It's your boy George Reister in the building, and I got my man back, my main Unafraid Show dad back, Ralph Amsden. This man covers all type of stuff with college football, high school kids. He's a food expert as well, just like me. We like to do a lot of eating, and we got a couple really good things up for you guys today. First of all, these are the Unafraid Show dads. So we're going to talk about things that apply to families, that apply to dads, and intersect with the world of sports. So we got the NBA dads today, the overbearing NBA dads, LaVar Ball and Anthony Davis Sr. We're going to be talking about Florida State and their domestic violence handling. What's going on with Willie Taggart, Deondre Francois, and Kendall Briles. And also the Super Bowl commercials have gone like encouraging activism. Is this a good thing? And why are these commercials and these brands forcing us to answer so many questions to our damn kids? Thanks for joining me today, Ralph. I appreciate it, man, as always.
I'm fired up. You look a little chilly there in your cove.
Man, so it's always funny when you screw something up as a person. There are consequences. I forgot to turn the heat on in the studio today, and now it's like 50 degrees in here, and I'm freezing. But this is Unafraid Show. The show must go on. So it's interesting that we were going to talk about Lonzo Ball and LaVar Ball and Anthony Davis because both of their dads have gotten in the middle of their trade talks. Anthony Davis's dad says he doesn't want him to go to Boston. LaVar Ball, we know he's always in the mix. He says his son doesn't want to go to the Pelicans. He wants to go to the Suns, that he's a winner. And then you were leaving Arizona State's practice today. And what did you hear on the radio?
Our local big radio station let LaVar Ball on the airwaves, not just once but twice today. And it was like they let a leopard loose in the living room, and then he trashed the living room, and then we're all sitting there like, oh, nobody could have predicted that would happen. I mean, he went wild. He was saying that it was Walton's fault that Lonzo didn't have the attitude of a winner anymore, and that if Lonzo came to Phoenix, he would win because that's all he does is win, but that he would need his brothers here with him. And it just kept going back to like how they were undefeated when they played together that one time in high school. It was just, man, it was bizarre. He wants his kid to go to Phoenix and not New Orleans, which New Orleans, like they would pair him with Drew Holiday. He'd be in a really, really good situation with a team that might be able to win even without Anthony Davis if they can grow up a core. I mean, he'd be bringing the entire Lakers team with him. If it's a really Luke Walton problem, the whole Lakers were going to go to New Orleans. So
yeah.
You would have the coaching change, but now he wants to come to Phoenix, who win 1 out of every 5 games, who haven't made the playoffs in 9 seasons, and he's going to be the one to turn the culture around? I don't think so. And then the radio hosts were making him promise that if Lonzo came here, that he would stay out of it. Like, you just invited him to not stay out of it. And so it was as wild as you could expect it to be because he's kind of had a muzzle on with LeBron around for the last, couple of months. He was ready to go. They asked him if he was afraid of LeBron. He said, "I'm not even afraid of Jesus." And it was a lot. It was a lot to take in.
Well, before we even get into the overbearing dad thing, LaVar Ball has been eerily quiet like for the last 9 months. Like you haven't heard a peep out of this dude. So has he been like blacklisted on radio and television by Magic Johnson and the Lakers and the NBA, or is he just or is this or was that a personal choice and he was like, I'm doing a little too much, let me back off?
He would have had to be in on it 100% because there's nothing stopping that guy from opening up his phone like you did today, getting on Periscope and just going wild. He could create his own audience, and I think that he knows that. He's created his own shoe. He's tried to create his own basketball league. He's created his own NCAA eligibility rules. Like, he could create a space for himself to make noise if he wanted to. I think he's been in on the whole thing of him needing to stay quiet. But I think his son's name being out there as far as, trade rumors and stuff for a couple of weeks pushed him over the edge. and he is free falling right now.
See, as a dad, I'm like, okay, at what point in time do I get out of my son's business? At what point in time do I just sit back, play dad, and and give him advice as opposed to trying to run his life and trying to control what goes on? Because I was telling you a story earlier about my 12-year-old son. So he's a pretty good little baseball player. There's a USA kind of team tryout in Arizona this year where they rank the kids. He'll be doing 13, 14U stuff. And he'll get a sense of where he is amongst other kids in the country. And they have a choice about what they're going to do. Is he going to go just as a pitcher? Is he going to go as a pitcher and a position player and showcase all his skills? And his initial thought was, well, I'm just going to go as a pitcher because that's really what I want to do. And I just thought that was the worst decision in the history of this little 12-year-old kid. I was like, son, you have a really good stick. You're a good hitter. Like, why would you limit yourself and limit your opportunities to showcase everything that you can do? Like, you may not be the one of the top 3 pitchers, but you may be one of the top over 20 overall baseball players. So that's going to potentially get you on the team. And he was like, nah. And so I basically was like, look, it doesn't matter what you want to do. This is happening. And my wife got all upset with me. She was like, George, you want him to make good choices and good decisions. So you have to empower him to make those. And she was basically telling me that I was not empowering my 12-year-old son. And so she said, you have to show him how to make good choices. So she's like, would he want to talk to somebody that he trusts and all that? I'm like, I'm his dad. I played in the NFL, played 2 sports in college. Like, I know this. Like, who else does he need to lean on? And I think that this holds true with Anthony Davis and Lonzo Ball, that it almost seems like it's emasculating them when their dads act like this.
Not just emasculating them when their dads act like this. It does the same thing. It has a reverse effect on their dads. Because what is your only option? If you're going to let your dad run off at the mouth anytime he has an opinion on your career, an adult man, anytime your dad has an opinion on your career, you're going to let it make news. Whether it's with Dorian Thompson-Robinson at UCLA when his dad came out and ripped Chip Kelly, or this Anthony Davis thing about not letting my son go to Boston because they weren't loyal to Isaiah Thomas, in the middle of you saying like, hey, I'm not going to be loyal to New Orleans. And then, with the whole LaVar Ball thing, if you have to take the attitude of like, oh, that's just my dad, he says what he says, his opinion, it doesn't really matter or hold value or hold weight, you get to a position where you have to publicly posture and just say, oh, that's just my dad. Then you're telling other people not to take your dad seriously. You're taking power away from your dad that your dad probably shouldn't have been wielding in the first place.
Yep.
But I think the entire situation just creates a situation where there's a bunch of people speaking into your life and your situation. We're sitting here right now talking about whether or not we should take these men seriously because they won't let their grown sons make their own decisions. It's got that reverse effect. Like, we're out here, we're bashing the dads, right?
Well, there is another option. There is another option for them. They can come out and, 2 other options. They can either come out and say, look, I don't agree with what my dad said. Or they can privately say, Dad, you got to chill, you got to back off. Because how does that work with your relationships? If your girl, if your wife, if your kids know that dad is running your house and his house, how are you going to govern your own house when everybody knows that somebody else is actually calling the shots for you?
Well, and even if you do cut them off, if you've created that environment where they can speak for you, look at Floyd Sr. and Roger Mayweather. Like, they're still giving interviews about Floyd all the time, whether Floyd wants them to or not. Meghan Markle's dad is speaking on her situation constantly. She doesn't want him to have anything to do with it, doesn't want to have anything to do with him. Like it feels like there are some dads that are definitely overstepping, and maybe these kids don't step up to their dads, or maybe they are doing it privately. It doesn't matter because the dads just want part of this attention too.
Yeah, I don't. I just don't. I just would never want my kid to look weak in front of everybody else. And I think that you put them in a position to look weak, to look infantile when you do that. And this is coming from a person, like I'm a person who has praised LaVar Ball for how much he loves his kids, how attentive he is in the situation, because we bash so many dads for not being there, and he's actually there, present, and involved. So I acknowledge that. But at the same time, like it would be different if this was LaMelo or Jello, and you're like, okay, we want to know what the dad says. They're still young, but these are grown men who are. Anthony Davis is gonna have made $100 million like super quick and is getting ready to sign another $180 million deal. There is no way that Anthony Davis Sr. is still paying his bills, is doing all this stuff. In actuality, it's probably the other way around. But you gonna tell me what to do? Yeah, how about no?
Man, my wife doubles up my salary, and I don't even feel comfortable speaking for her as the breadwinner. I don't get where Anthony Davis's pops gets off like saying, This is the part. I would not let my son play for Boston. In what universe is it even up to you? You and I grew up watching. Danny Ainge is the type of dude to trade for your son just to piss you off, just because you said something like that.
Yep.
Danny Ainge never stopped. Danny Ainge had no sense when he played in the NBA. He'd be in Jordan's face. He'd be in Ewing's face. He'd be trying to get on everybody's nerves. You know he has the urge right now just to rent Anthony Davis for a year and a half just to piss off that dude's dad.
I can't understand why so many people want to speak about situations when you have no power in it. And then you put yourself in a position, like you said, where other people can do things to spite you. And Danny Ainge could do something literally to spite him. And in reality, Boston is a good place. Like, it's a good team with a good coach, winning culture. And Anthony Davis's dad talked about loyalty. And we keep hearing fans talk about loyalty in sports, loyalty. The teams aren't loyal. So why on earth should the players be loyal? And I think that you're seeing that a lot in the NBA, in the NFL, and it makes fans mad. But in reality, like, this is a business. Everybody's got to make business decisions, and you're making bad ones when you are limiting your kids' options and potentially, bothering how much money that they're going to be able to make and the places that they can go.
So this is my question for you. Do you think that Anthony Davis Sr., do you think that LaVar Ball, do you think that they actually have this power in their kids' lives, or do you think they're just speaking into a situation because they've been given the ability to do so? Do you think that Anthony Davis is checking with his dad on where he should play basketball? At 25 years old, after 7 years in the NBA, do you think he's leaving it up to his dad?
No, he's not leaving it up to his dad. I think he's talking to his dad about it, as much as any kid talks to their parent about something. But at the same time, like, I talk to my mom and dad about things still, and I'm 37 years old. However, at the end of the day, the decision is going to be solely up to me. And so sometimes there have been some times where I've talked to my parents about things and they're like, George, I firmly am against this. And I still do it anyway. So I think that Anthony Davis in particular, because he is 25, he does not want to look weak, especially in front of, the locker room is full of alpha males. And you cannot be chunked and anybody think that you are not as alpha as you are. Because we've seen passive superstars. We've seen people who people kind of bully around, push around a little bit, and that never goes away. People continuously try you. And Anthony Davis, he might do it just to spite, just to make sure that he doesn't end up in that position. So I don't think that their dads have, well, Anthony Davis in particular, because he's made so much money And it's him. Where Lonzo probably feels some sort of, obligation to help his brothers out because they had this plan. And it doesn't always work like that. Look at Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, and Cooper Manning. Cooper ain't in the NFL. Peyton is Eli's not as good as Peyton. There's only so much that you can do. Everybody's got to forge their own path. Like the middle son is not an NBA player. It's not gonna happen. And LaVar trying to relive these high school days it speaks of like little league dad who goes off on the umpire, cusses out the coach in the middle of the game, and embarrasses his kid.
And that's where I'm at with it right now. As I told you a story right before we started. My son had a spelling bee today, and we didn't find out about it until like 10 hours before it was supposed to go down. And he had to be at school an hour before all the rest of his siblings. It was going to throw off our whole morning. We were mad that they didn't communicate to us. So I told him, I went full Anthony Davis Sr. I was like, you're not going.
Yes.
You're not going to spelling bee because like they didn't communicate with us, and that'll teach them. And then, I start to think, and I'm like, oh, I went full NBA dad for no reason. I'm punishing my kid for something that had nothing to do with him. So this morning we wake up, I take him earlier than everybody else. The dude finishes third. He finishes third in the whole thing. I was about to deprive him of an experience where he finished third in the spelling bee in the whole district just because I was holding a grudge over something that had nothing to do with him. What if Anthony Davis is the last piece Boston needs to go and win a title, and his dad's really going to hold him back over some Isaiah Thomas stuff? And it looks to me like the Celtics are getting their comeuppance anyway for this because Kyrie Irving is ultimately probably going to walk away from them. And so, like, they're going to get theirs. But at the same time, like, would Anthony Davis's dad really stick his foot in there and stop his son from being able to win a championship over Isaiah Thomas?
See,
is that really what he's going to do?
I didn't hate them not re-signing and trading Isaiah Thomas anyway. Sorry, I'm not paying a 5'8" dude who relies on his athleticism so much and who's hurt I'm not getting ready to pay him a max deal because you can't win a contract. You can't win a championship with the worst rated defensive player in the entire league. Like, he can't rebound. He can't defend anybody just because he's too small. So like Steph Curry has trouble defending people a lot of times. So imagine this dude, and he can't shoot at the same level. It's just, I just don't blame him, dude. It's a business. It's a business. But I wanted to move on to the next order of business, which is college football. And over the last, 2 weeks, we've seen a crazy set of circumstances play out at Florida State. We have seen Willie Taggart dismiss his starting quarterback, Deondre Francois, after a video came out. His ex-girlfriend posted on Instagram with him yelling in the background, saying he was going to hit her in the face and all these things. You can't actually see them. You can only hear the words. And so it's clearly, to me, the video looks like a clear setup to make sure that this was recorded. And then so he gets dismissed. The girl posts an Instagram post saying that, that she was just trying to get back. The thing that you brought up to me that I found interesting is about Kendall Briles, which is a whole side note. So you have this domestic violence incident at Florida State with Deondre Francois. And then you have the fact that, and then he dismissed him from the team because he wanted to create the right culture, do the right thing. But he hired Kendall Briles to be his offensive coordinator, who was a central figure in the Baylor sexual assault cases that are still going on. His dad can't get a job. He was right smack dab in the middle, but Willie Taggart some kind of way thinks that this is creating the right culture, doing the right thing. I think is very self-serving.
Willie Taggart, to me, especially the last couple of years, it's been that situation where he walks out in the front yard, a bucket falls on his head, and then he steps on a rake, steps on another rake. I have not seen him, and a lot of it's his own doing, but I have not seen him just be able to get out of his own way He keeps running into different situations, and this is one where if you bring up culture when you are letting somebody go, you bring the entire culture out to the forefront for everybody to examine. If you say we're doing this for the culture of our team, then that invites us in to take a look at what the actual culture of the team is, and what do you tell people publicly when you bring in Kendall Briles to run your offense. And then, yeah, there's been a lot of drama at Florida State. I think 3 of the last 5 quarterbacks they've had have been involved in some type of domestic issues that have essentially embarrassed the university as a whole. But when you're, when you're Willie Taggart and you make this public statement, and everything coming back to not maybe be what it was is completely separate from the issue of him dismissing a quarterback, but inviting in somebody to run the offense who was part of a culture that probably should have caused Baylor to not even have football anymore, if we're being honest. And so, I don't really know what to say or think about the whole Deondre Francois situation, because you have a lot of people who do things like this for attention. You have a lot of people who are very high maintenance. And then you absolutely have people who are in a system of verbal and emotional abuse who don't really know the right way to come out and let people know. And sometimes those things resemble each other.
Yep.
So I can't speak into who did what, but I can speak into Willie Taggart's comments, especially if he's inviting us in to look at his program and say, hey, we're trying to set a culture of doing the right thing all the time. How? In what other way?
He always talks about culture and we got to change the culture. I mean, he said it at Oregon, said it at Florida State, said it at Western Kentucky. I mean, like it's almost like a sales pitch. And Florida State people think that I absolutely hate Willie Taggart because I'm always saying something about him. Well, not always, but occasionally. And they think that I hate him. I don't hate Willie Taggart because he left Oregon. I'm happy he left Oregon. Like it has turned out to be a blessing. So anybody who thinks that I have an axe to grind with Willie Taggart, I don't. Like, I'm happy he came, left Cristobal. The recruiting is better there at Oregon now. Like he was an addition by subtraction. And the team is no longer last in the country in penalties. He took that to Florida State with him. Like, I have no axe to grind with Willie Taggart, aside from the fact that he did get in my DMs to lie to me. Like, we had never direct messaged, and he direct messaged me to lie to me. So, but I don't have an axe to grind. It is what it is. But when you continuously talk about culture, oh, we're gonna do the right thing. This is the way we got to do it. Where is the proof? I mean, like, when you really look at his resume, where is the proof that he's a culture changer?
Here's when I became aware. I became aware of Willie Taggart, because I cover the teams in the Pac-12, and he came out here, and Oregon's president and Oregon athletic director, they were very clear. They're coming off Mark Helfrich. They wanted somebody who's going to come in and be exciting. They wanted somebody who's going to push the players in the weight room. And so what they outlined is, we want somebody who blows it up on social media and can relate to the kids. And we want somebody who's going to come in and push these kids physically. And within a week of Willie Taggart getting there, his wide receivers coach had tweeted out a picture of ducks flying in a dick and balls formation.
Yep.
And his strength coach put some kids in the hospital.
3 kids in the hospital that are now suing the kid, that are now suing him and the team for millions.
Yeah. His tight ends coach got a DUI. And then my next experience with him is him recruiting a kid that I know, Tyler Shuck, standing out in Tyler Shuck's backyard on the phone with Florida State. And so, and then going back inside into his living room and saying, like, no, I'm 100% all about Oregon. And so, like, I've just watched him. It's one of those things where, you look around, you see muddy footprints all over your house. You look down at the one person's shoes that got mud all over them, and you're like, you.
And he's like, like, no. Listen. Yeah. I brought the mud in to make sure that everybody knows that it's a new sheriff in town and that we got to clean this mud up. Like, dude, he's like the arsonist. I mean, he's like the firefighter who's a masquerading as an arsonist. Like, that's what he's doing.
And you were telling me there's always an ulterior motive, right? So like he didn't want Deondre Francois on the team anyway.
I forgot his name. That's the freshman now that he doesn't get in the transfer portal and try to leave. Like it's self-serving. I mean, and then you can't. And had he not hired Kendall Briles, and that was a definite CYA cover your ass move, because he knows that if he doesn't win at Florida State this year, he will be fired and he'll be back at Western Kentucky somewhere, because he won't get another Power 5 job anytime soon until he wins 10 games for the first time.
Oh,
dude, it is an absolute mess, dude. And figure at all the stuff that happens at Baylor. At what point in time is he now employable? Like, at what point in time is there not forgiveness, but, you know, kind of moving on, turning the page?
Right. And so it's one thing if you're going to take the lead on your mistakes like Mike Riley did, right? So Mike Riley, he was responsible for what ended up being a pretty terrible culture that resulted in people getting seriously hurt. And when he realized that he was part of the problem, he took the lead on educating young men to make sure that stuff like this doesn't necessarily happen in the future. Is Kendall Briles going to be that dude? Is he going to carry the mantle of, you know, of co-ed safety and of being, you know, responsible young men, of taking the brutality mindset that you have to have on the football field and leaving it on the football field, and coaching people through what appropriate relationships are when you're trying to focus on football in your future? Is he going to be that guy? I mean, strike one already, right?
Yep,
you already
yep.
have somebody who's kicked off the team. You didn't leave any room for grace there. You didn't leave any room for, you know, a different story to come out. It was, hey, we're going to cut this cancer and be fine here moving on. And you hope that's enough of a warning shot to everybody else. But what if somebody is falsely accused? You don't leave room for any of that, or, you know, you're not telling a kid like, hey, I have your back in this situation, while at the same time understanding that more than having your back, I'm on the side of right and not wrong. And so, you know, they're not even trying to walk that line. They're just trying to cut, move on. And can you move on when what you're moving on with has also helped foster that culture? And I don't know if they can.
Oh yeah. And here's the thing that I know and that I believe in life. I teach my kids this, and we talk about it in our family, which is character, doing the right thing. And if you don't, well, that whatever seeds you sow, you will reap those seeds. That initially you may have some success, some good things may happen, and out in the world, people get frustrated because they feel like bad people are winning, that people can do whatever and nothing happens. But the reality is this, is that the consequences don't always show up the way that we want them to for people. They don't always show up. Like we may believe that they should, you know, be in jail, that they should be fired, that this and that. But a lot of times these people end up dying alone. Nobody wants them. They may have a bunch of money, but they're lonely. Their kids don't like them. Their wife leaves them. Their wife's cheating on. I mean, like, they may be living in a personal hell despite living like a glamorous life publicly.
There is a cost. Absolutely, there is a cost, and you don't always see it.
Yep. The last thing that we got up today is the Super Bowl ads. Like, how have the Super Bowl ads impacted, you know, life and family, the way that we look at them? Because so many ads are encouraging activism. They are encouraging, you know, everything from empowering women to toxic masculinity to, you know, get out and vote. I mean, all these ads are promoting something and activism. And where do you stand on these things, Ralph?
Well, this is the first time that I've sat down and watched the Super Bowl with my kids from start to finish, my older two sons. And I told them, like, hey, the best part about this, even if you're not completely into the football game, even if you don't understand everything that's going on anytime, the commercials are going to be very entertaining. Like, there's going to be some movie previews dropping. You're going to want to see those. There's going to be some other stuff that's just funny and nonsense. And it'll be cool. It'll be a cool thing to experience as a family. And then about, a quarter and a half in, I'm realizing, like, oh, this actually is not as easygoing and fun as I had anticipated it being, because there were some commercials coming on that, that created questions in them that I'm like, oh, maybe the Super Bowl is not the best time for us to be having a discussion about climate change and and why corn syrup isn't necessarily like the best thing for stuff. And I'm like, and in my head, I'm thinking back to like, oh, what happened to just like off the backboard, off the bleachers, nothing but net.
Yeah.
Like that, like what happened to that? And so it definitely, I've been thinking about it for the last couple of days of like, man, did I go into this? Battles are won in preparation. And I got to say, I probably took an L because I wasn't prepared. Like I knew that every once in a while there's going to be an ad like that Lumber 29 or whatever it was a couple years ago about building a giant wall on the border with a huge door in it.
Yeah.
Like, but you heard about that leading up to the Super Bowl. I didn't really hear about anybody coming out and doing anything. And so it was definitely a different experience than I was anticipating going into it.
See, I don't mind the commercials about activism and engagement and all that, because I can't see anything wrong with getting our kids, getting our young people more involved and trying to fulfill their civic duty, regardless of whether you agree with all the things that they think and believe, because young people are dumb. They like sometimes they have really smart ideas, but in general, like as my dad would say, they don't know shit from Shinola. Like,
Yeah.
like they don't know anything. But at the same time, sometimes they have really bright ideas. So I think that it's important that they are engaged. I do like that. But I do agree with you too, where you're like, sometimes I just want to just watch the game.
Right.
But the other thing that we talked about was kids. Like, how important is it for us to have a lot of these conversations with our kids? Because there's a lot of parents who shy away from conversations, whether it's climate change or whether it's sex. Like, and if we don't talk to our kids about it, somebody else will, and it's usually their stupid friends that don't know anything either. And then they're telling them that you can't get pregnant if you have sex upside down, or that climate change only that climate change isn't real because it's super cold outside. And
Right.
instead of giving them opportunities to be educated, and I think that sometimes it challenges us as parents, because sometimes we're not quite as educated on these things as we need to be, and it makes us uncomfortable when our kids ask us questions.
Yeah, because so when I'm not ready for something like that, like I'll feed right into. I'll come off as a pessimist, right? Like so, Bud Light, there'll be, or Budweiser, there'll be some Clydesdales walking up a mountain, and then the cameras pan back to these wind turbines that have Budweiser logos on them. And my kid will be like, "What's that about?" And I'll be like, "They're just trying to sell you beer, man." And the truth is, I'm like, wait, is InBev investing in different types of energy to like, what is happening here? So then
Yeah.
I don't have enough information to share with him. So then I just write it all off together. Like it reminds me of like, yeah, everything's an opportunity, right? If you're a parent, you have to have that perspective going in though. So like, it's watching Kate Upton sit on a car eating a cheeseburger. My immediate reaction isn't like, oh, okay, so this is a good opportunity for me to speak to my kids about like how there are objects in this commercial, the cheeseburger, the car, the woman is not an object, even though she's being treated like an object in this particular scenario. And they understand our psychology of like, of seeing all three of these things as an object. One of them is not. And so like that would be a fantastic thing for me to do in that moment. Instead, I just reach over and I'm like in front of my kid's face.
Yeah, and
Hey,
you're
come
like,
on.
can I just watch the game right now
Yeah,
without having
yeah,
a discussion? Yeah, so
exactly.
there's definitely pros and cons to it, because sometimes you don't want that, and I think that that's what kind of rubs people the wrong way, either because they don't know how to have the conversations, or they just don't want to have the conversation at that time, because kids are going to challenge you. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to wonder who, what, when, where, why. Like for instance, I promise you, I hope my son does not watch this whole or listen to this whole podcast, because I'm getting ready to talk about something. And if he hears this, dude, I am dead meat. Um, so I have both of my ears pierced. My dad has both of his ears pierced. My dad wouldn't let me get my ears pierced, even though I wanted it in high school, until I was 18. He was like, yo, if you want to do it when you go off to college, that's fine. One time I showed up on winter break with earrings in. And so my 12-year-old son was like, yo, dad, I want to get my ears pierced. I was like, no, I'm not letting you get your ears pierced. And he's like, dad, it's not like a tattoo. Like, it's not going to change my future, maybe make me unemployable. Like, it's not something that I'm not going to necessarily want when I'm older, because I can just take them out. Like, it's not a thing. And he was like, so can you please tell me why? Right? Because I have this thing with him now. I'm like, you always have to make a case to me why you want something. From anything about why you want ice cream to why you want your ears pierced. Like, you have to make a case to me about why you want this, and why I should say okay. And he sits there, so he makes his case. He actually doesn't make a bad case. And he goes, okay, so dad, so now that I've told you, what about the earrings? And then I was like, son, that's a decision that you need to make when you're a grown man. I don't, and he's like, dad, it's not a tattoo. It's not going to affect anything. And I couldn't really come up with a great explanation for him. And something happened, so we lost the conversation. And I am dreading when he brings it up. So Ralph, I need something right now to tell my kid about why he can't get his ears pierced, because he's trying to get him at 14. He was like, yeah, dad,
Yeah.
I think this is still a little bit early, but like when I get to high school, if I still want them, I think that should be cool.
Google is your friend here, man. Just get on there, infected piercings, click images, and just leave that up for him. Just leave
Okay.
that up for him to run into, to see like other people's botched
Oh,
piercing.
I like that. And say, son, you're gonna be playing ball. You're gonna have to take them
Yep.
out all the time. You can get infected when you put your helmet on. I've seen people who's had their earrings ripped out. I'm like, son, this is not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. Testimonials. Google will make your case for you, because yeah, there could be like 10 million pictures out there of people with like perfectly healthy ears with earrings in, but all you need is that one where the ears all puffy like they're a UFC fighter, and maybe that one does your work for you. You don't have to say a word. The picture speaks 10,000 words.
I like that, Ralph. I like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. That's the attitude I'm going at him with. Hopefully it works. You guys are watching The Unafraid Show. George Reister here with my other Unafraid Show dad, Ralph Amsden. We have been all over the place today. You guys make sure you share the feed. Tell a friend about The Unafraid Show podcast. And go visit Ralph Amsden. His handle is underneath at Ralph Amsden, AMSDEN. And we covered today overbearing NBA parents, high school parents, college parents. Leave your kids alone. Advise them, teach them to make good choices. Don't bombard them and emasculate them. We talked about Willie Taggart and his self-serving situation at Florida State, getting rid of Francois and keeping and hiring Kendall Briles. And we talked about the Super Bowl commercials with our kids and how these things make us tired, and that forces us to be more engaged in what's going on in the world, and it's great for our kids. Ralph, you got anything, man?
No, that's it. Everybody stay blessed, stay grateful.
Yep. Peace out. We will catch you guys next Tuesday. Okie dokie. I think we are okay. One of these days it will be off.
That piercing stuff made me laugh.
Oh, dude.